Today is a special day. Today is the day I am officially returning to my roots. Returning to your roots is a sentence with lots of different meanings, and everyone will have their own understanding of it or their own way of going back to their roots. The most common understanding of going back to your roots is probably either going back to your home village where you were born or tracing back your family line. However, if I had to generally define returning to your roots, I would define it as returning in space or time to either better understand it or to learn from it. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm not returning to my home village or retracing my family line, but I am returning to a more simple and slower lifestyle. A lifestyle that is more grounded and doesn't try to be more than is needed. A lifestyle that seems more and more lost in this hectic world. So today is a special day because today I'm making the mindful choice to continue on this path to fully embrace a simple life. To be honest with you, I'm not throwing my life overboard and completely changing my life in a single day. Learning about simple and slow living and bringing it into my life bit by bit has actually been a slow process that's been taking me years. I also believe there are tons of people out there who are on a similar path or have similar experience as I have, maybe even you. And that's why I also want to talk a bit about my story, how I've gotten here, sitting here today, talking to the camera and creating this video, because I believe my story will at least be recognizable to some of you, and I also hope it will help at least someone out there. So let's begin. Hi, I'm Zeger, I'm almost 30 years old, and ever since I graduated 8 years ago, I have been living the life that society expected me to live. I went to college and university. I immediately started applying for jobs after graduating. I started working in a large corporation. I tried working myself up on the corporate ladder and even switched between employers a couple of times to grow further, faster. I have had jobs that required me to drive 2 hours per day in a car to get there and back home again. I've had jobs where I had to work long evenings to get everything done in time, and I've had jobs where I felt like I wasn't really appreciated and supported, but I kept chugging along anyways. When I finally got off of work, my evenings were pretty monotonous. I usually ended up on the couch, watching another Netflix series, playing video games, or simply taking a nap. I barely went out cycling anymore, something that I actually used to do on a daily basis as a kid and a student. I actually barely went outside at all anymore, and my eating habits, well, let's just say they weren't great either. At the time, I just thought this was how life was meant to be as an adult, just one big repetitive cycle of waking up, going to work, coming back from work exhausted and just recovering in the evenings, and then having very busy weekends just trying to catch up on everything that I couldn't do throughout the week. And then somewhere along the way I also lost my creativity, my drive to create something for this world to help improve it, and most importantly, my passion. I was living a mindless, directionless and boring life. And one of the first signs for me that something wasn't right was actually on a weekend day when I was going to my parents' place. You see, usually I just took the car I had at the time to go to my parents, but because it was a beautiful summer day, I decided to take my bicycle again. My parents live on a hill just a couple of kilometers from where I live, and when I was in college and at university, I used to cycle this distance and the hill on a daily basis. Some days I did it even multiple times a day. But that specific summer day, I was cycling up the hill and it was feeling really difficult. A hill that I was so used to cycling up every day, I was now struggling with to get on top of. I was overwhelmed and out of breath. It felt really uncomfortable and confronting at the same time, and in a short moment as this, I really felt something was off and that I had to make a change. That first change came with me finding a new job. I wasn't really happy anymore with the job I had back at the time, and a change was needed. I found one that instead of having to drive an hour single way to, one that was in the city in which I lived and that I could easily cycle to. Besides that, I also started going out for runs, just short ones in the beginning, and gradually I felt my condition started to come back again. Going out for these runs also gave me a certain rhythm, a routine, something to look forward to, and in a way they helped me setting healthier boundaries in life. But what was actually most important to me from these runs were that these were moments with just me and my thoughts, alone for a moment, away from all the other usual daily distractions, allowing me for a moment to reflect, to think about life, what I actually wanted and where I was heading. And that's what I did over the next months. I started asking myself questions like, what do I value? Where do I see myself in 10 years? Or how would an ideal day look like for me? And a whole lot of other ones. I didn't always have immediate answers ready to these questions, as up until then I was always focused on what was right in front of me, but those questions were a doorway for me to start exploring alternative lifestyles. I went to the local library, searched the internet and watched a lot of YouTube videos on what's out there. I explored how people live in different places around the world, alternative ways of housing, of work and more. There were a lot of things that interested me, like moving to the countryside, living in a close-knit community, sharing food and items, living in a tiny house or a cottage, van life, digital nomadism and a bunch more. All completely different lifestyles compared to how I was currently living, but they all had one thing for me in common, and that is that they were a return to a more simple, a slower and a more minimalist way of living. I came to the realization that I didn't have to throw my entire life overboard to live differently, although some of those things still try very interesting to try in the future. But I could incorporate aspects of those different lifestyles into my current life, still living in an apartment in a city and working a 9-to-5 job. And so that's what I've been doing over the past couple years. Regaining my life, starting with small but impactful habits, going out for more walks, consuming less, and in general taking everything a bit slower. I have been living life more on my own terms instead of constantly doing what is expected of me. I am returning to a simple life. So now that you know a little bit more about me, why am I starting this YouTube channel and creating this very video? The answer is actually very simple. I had a creative itch. You know, as a kid I was doing something creative pretty much every day. I was playing with the Legos or Playmobil, I was doing watercolor painting, or I was even drawing my own comics. But as I grew up, I was doing these creative activities less and less and eventually barely at all. And I believe this is probably a recognizable situation for a lot of us. Priorities, interests and responsibilities start shifting once you start college and university, and definitely once you start your first job. And then creative activities often just become an afterthought. An afterthought, but still a thought that was always somewhere in my head, like a creative itch lingering around, waiting to be acted upon. So then I remembered that as a kid, a friend and I had a YouTube channel actually, like a simple channel where we were just uploading videos of games that interested us at the time. In a very amateurish way, we were just recording bits of us playing and then putting it together in good old Windows Movie Maker. It was low quality and barely getting any views, but that really didn't matter at the time because we were having fun. I'm not going to show the channel here because, as I said, it was very amateurishly, but the channel is actually still online on YouTube and so are the videos. And honestly, it's been fun just to look back on those videos from time to time. But even if we didn't know what we were really doing back at the time, I still remember enjoying the whole process of planning what we could film, to filming itself, to editing it and finally uploading it on YouTube. Just happy with what we created for the world to see. And so I thought, why not do something similar again? Combine my experiences with slow and simple living together with an opportunity to be creative again and share my stories and experiences with you. And so here we are now, with me starting on a new journey, both here on YouTube and with me fully embracing a simple life, hence also this channel's name. What can you expect here? Stories, insights, experiences from a 30-somewhat-year-old going through his daily life, living simple and slow. Video essays about discussions I believe are worth sharing, hopefully bringing some value, or videos how life is as someone living simply in a city with a normal job. As for the practicalities, 1 to 2 videos per month is something I would like to aim towards, but I still have to figure things out and get used to all of this because it's still pretty new to me. It will probably take me some time, but I also like to see it as a learning opportunity. I think it's just part of starting a YouTube channel and the journey. I know this all is still a little bit fake, even for me it is, but if this video already sparked your interest, feel free to follow along. And with that being said, I would like to thank you for watching and listening to my story, and I hope that we will see each other soon again. Bye.